Hi, I'm Ali Porti, fashion and lifestyle journalist and editor of Zayla magazine. I've always been interested in biographies and in the stories of people's lives, basically listening to what stirs their souls. Welcome to the soulful side of life, where I let you in on some of my conversations with inspiring people from around the world in fashion, faith, entertainment, music, and entrepreneurship. These are conversations that stir the soul about people's journeys, about the ups and downs of life, and how they have overcome certain situations. I hope that these episodes will inspire your life in some way, so enjoy over a cup of something hot or on your drive to work. This is The Soulful Side of Life and can be found on Spotify Podcasts or Apple Podcasts. So I had the privilege of having this really cool conversation with Kimanee Mason. She is a model turned entrepreneur with her own brand, Grace and Company, and just a breath of fresh air. She exudes joy, and we had this lovely chat about modeling, her decision to start Grace and Company, and her decision also to take her Christian faith seriously. Kimanee was born in Westmoreland, Jamaica, and she moved to New York City for college at the age of 15 and was soon discovered by elite model management. The next day, literally, she shot for Teen Vogue after contacting elite model management. Her modeling career spanned over a period of 15 years, from runways to commercial work, working with top designers from Oscar de la Renta to Valentino. While Kimanee was doing her modeling work, she completed her BFA in design at New York School of Interior Design, and she then transitioned into a career in commercial design at Perkins Eastman Architects. In 2015, she decided to launch her own brand, Grace and Company, with a passion for creating luxury products that are equally functional as they are fashionable and beautiful. Kimanee and her husband Frank reside in New York City, and they have 3 boys and a little girl on the way. She's a woman of faith, and she supports causes aimed at elevating the worth of women. So enjoy this podcast episode with Kimanee Mason. You're going to like this one. Kimanee, thank you so much for joining the podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to chat with you today.
For me too. Okay, so before we get into your brand and your fashion career, I would love to hear what it was like growing up in Jamaica.
So growing up in Jamaica was a really wonderful childhood. I grew up in a really loving household. And it was just at a time where, you're raised by the people that are in your household, your parents, but you're also raised by the wider community. And so things felt a lot more communal. But it was a wonderful childhood, I'd say, average middle class house. I have 2 siblings. I'm the eldest of two. I have a younger brother, younger sister. And so always felt that pressure as well, I guess, if you'd call it that, because I'm oldest.
Yeah.
So that's something that I think most firstborns tend to kind of have. But it was wonderful. I went to school in Jamaica. I graduated high school in Jamaica before moving to New York. And so most of my formative years were really spent there.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you are a woman of faith, specifically the Christian faith. What was that like coming to know Christ and taking your faith with you in your work? Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say, so I grew up in Jamaica. I would call myself culturally Christian. Like, at least when I was growing up, I was culturally a Christian. Most Jamaicans would say that they're Christians. It's a Christian nation overall. But I didn't come, and I didn't come to like have a relationship with Christ until I was in my 20s, like late 20s. I always prayed, I always believed in God, I always believed in Jesus, but I didn't have an understanding that you could have a personal relationship and that God was very close. I thought of God as being very far. You pray to God if you need something or when you're in trouble. But
Right.
I did not have that understanding that he was looking for intimacy. And
Yeah.
so that is not a revelation that I had until, I was late 20s.
Okay. Wow. And were you in your modeling career when you had that revelation?
So it was a really interesting time. So I started modeling at 15 years old, and
Wow.
I was a model for 15 years. So it was during that time, but towards the end of my career that I really, and this happened when I met my husband. And
I,
this kind of happened to us both. His background was that, he also grew up in the church, but he wasn't walking with the Lord. And so when we met, it was a time where I feel like the Lord really encountered us kind of together
yeah.
simultaneously, and our faith grew together.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, so as a student, when you were studying in New York, what were your ambitions? You were obviously modeling. Oh, sorry. You were obviously modeling, but what were your ambitions career-wise outside of modeling?
So, modeling for me was always a job.
Yeah.
I always thought of it as a job. I always thought of it as, a job with a timeline. So I
Yeah.
knew that, and education is super important for me and just for the family that I'm from as well. And so I knew that I wanted to get some sort of formal education. I didn't always know what I wanted to do, specifically, but I think while I was modeling, I realized I really loved that design process. And
Mhm.
so started to go to school in the evenings and on the weekends for design.
Okay.
Um, and so as I thought about career, I knew that I wanted to do something in design. That's why I studied it, have a background in textiles. And so after I transitioned careers and I quit modeling, I was at an architecture firm called Perkins Eastman doing commercial interior design for a number of years before my before our oldest was born.
I see. I see. Okay. And what was it like when you were discovered by elite models? Were you on the street of New York and somebody saw you? What was that?
No, so it was just so happenstance. I graduated high school in Jamaica, moved to New York, and one day I was just walking by the elite sign, and I don't know how I knew that that's what it was, like the logo of elite, and I just walked by, and I thought, I should look that up. Growing up, everybody would say, you should be a model, you're really tall, you're really thin. And so that was always in the back of my mind. So I went home that day, and this is at a time where people still use directories. And so I looked up elite models in the directory, and lo and behold, it was the same place that I'd walked that earlier that day. And so I called them up, got some information, and I went in for what is called open call, which
Mm.
is where models from or aspiring models from all over the world would come in the hopes of being signed. And so I went to one of these open calls, maybe 2 weeks or so later, and they asked me to sign a contract.
Wow.
So it happened very quickly. I remember the next week I shot Teen Vogue, and like maybe 2, 3 weeks after that, I shot a Levi's campaign. So it happened very quickly. And I think I wasn't, I wasn't fully processing what was happening as it was happening because happening so quickly.
Right. Right. And some people spend years trying to get the attention of a modeling agency and it happens so fast. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think that modeling agencies are looking for, I mean, they have their set of criteria that they're looking for. Youth is one. Um, your height, obviously, your look, I guess, depending on what that trend is for that season. But I think it happened quickly. And for most models that I know, if I think if it, it usually happens very fast for most models that I know. I mean,
Okay,
I know that there are people who try and try, but usually if an agency is interested, they would rather be interested earlier than later
I
because
see.
youth is such a big part of the industry and
Sure,
being youthful.
sure. And I guess for people who keep trying and trying, maybe they just don't meet the standards of height or
Or
weight.
maybe the timing and the trends that are, maybe what the agency is looking for at that time is just not what that person has,
Right.
but their trends, I mean, the industry, they're different looks that, editors or, agencies are looking for. And so maybe it's a height requirement, maybe it's a weight requirement, maybe it's just not the look for that time,
I
the
understand. Yeah.
timing.
Did you find your experience as a model rather positive and enjoyable for
Well,
15 years?
it was. I mean, modeling is a very, very tough industry. I mean, first of all, girls are usually super young, what, like 15, 16, 17, 18 years old. You're
Mhm.
usually away from your family.
Mhm.
And any kind of foundational support. And there are usually a lot of praise around. So it's a very tough position to be in. And then you add on top of that the fact that, with any other profession, if somebody says no, it's
Mm,
not necessarily saying no to you, but it's saying no to maybe the job that you did.
I see.
You didn't do a good job as a physician or a teacher. If you hear no as a model, that
Mhm.
is something that directly affects models because it's usually no to the way you look.
Mm,
So it's such a personal thing, and so many girls really struggle with self-esteem because of this. The other thing is that you're always being compared to somebody that is younger, somebody that is newer, somebody that is more beautiful. There's so there's so many comparisons. So because of that, and you're so young, you
yeah.
really don't know how to process this, right? It's a very, very tough industry for those reasons.
Mm,
But I feel like I had mostly a positive experience. And I feel this is really just a grace of God over my life, even at in a season where I wasn't really seeking him, but he
mm,
was still covering me.
yeah.
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 Yeah. And
It's
and
amazing.
so I feel like I was shielded from a lot of things.
Yeah. It's amazing to have those kinds of experiences where even when we don't have him number one in our lives, but we're
Yeah.
getting favor, like maybe you were
Yes.
getting you're booking jobs, um, you were being protected from the negative parts of the industry. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, because he could turn it into a testimony later in your
He
life.
turns it into good. And what I love about the Lord is that he uses each season and builds upon each one. So everything that you learn in one season can be applied to the next season.
Right.
And even in our mistakes, it
Yeah.
really doesn't matter. Like he really turns it for your good.
Yeah.
And so I feel like a lot of the things that, like the modeling industry it was definitely a tough. I had a beautiful career. I had a great career, but there are definitely difficulties within that. But on the other hand, I also learned a lot
Yeah.
because persistence, consistency, showing up, being professional, showing up with a good attitude, even when you don't feel like it. It's just the job description. And
Right.
so I learned all these things and I was able to use all of these lessons and these things that I learned in other seasons of my life.
Yeah. That's really amazing. It's like one step, like God shows us one step at a
Yeah.
time, not the whole staircase. But then I guess, maybe when you're, God willing, 90 years old, 100 years old, and you look down at the staircase, you'll see, oh, I see how that led
Yeah.
to this,
How he
which led,
orchestrated it and how his just divine hand over each step.
yeah.
It is really amazing. But I am happy that I don't see every step
Yes,
because
yes,
I would probably be scared.
yes, it would
You're
be
probably not.
overwhelming.
Yeah, it would be a lot.
And one step that of you being in the modeling industry is that because of the constant changes to makeup or hair, your face, a model's face may, break out or your hair is damaged. And that's why you launched your brand because of that hair damage. So can
Yeah,
you talk a little bit about how the industry affected your hair and having, black hair and then how you're
absolutely.
with your brand
Absolutely.
now?
So yeah, when as a model, you're going through many, especially during show seasons.
Mm,
So you're going through 6, 7 shows per day, and your hair is getting completely destroyed. Like it's getting fried here, it's getting like blow dryer to flat iron to dry shampoo to just all these products and all the heat, and that really damages your hair. I mean, a lot of girls wear extensions for that
mm,
reason, to protect your hair.
yeah,
And I did as well. But my hair definitely got really damaged.
yeah,
And so as I started to think about Grace and Company, I really wanted to use my background in textiles to really solve for this issue that I myself had experienced. And I mean, even in other, at other times, like when I started having kids, my hair started to like break. That's something that nobody tells you about, the hair loss after childbirth. So I wanted to use my experience to really solve for that issue that I was having, but I know that a lot of other women experience as well.
yeah.
And thus Grace and Company.
Yes. And what products that you have aid in helping women with their hair care regimen?
So every product that, the way I think about design is that things need to be beautiful, but they also need to be highly functional. And so everything that I put in my hair, I need it to be beneficial for my hair. So our overall process for every product is really keeping that in mind,
Mm,
that I want to have healthy hair. So our shower cap is, it helps to preserve your blowout. You don't have to overwash your hair. So there are different products that, can fill in at different points along that hair care journey. But every product we think of this way.
I see. And the aha moment, what was that when you knew you wanted to create Grace and Company?
So I don't know I mean, I always had this problem with, or issue with, hair breakage, but I don't know that there was one aha moment. I know I've always been very entrepreneurial as well. Grew
Mm,
up in a household where my mother is super entrepreneurial. Always, I saw her operating multiple businesses. And so even as a model, I was doing the same thing. So that was my background. So I always thought about, the big question is, how can I use this problem to create a business?
yeah.
Because I think like that. And so there are a series of things that happened that really led me to that decision. But I think the biggest thing was, finding that product market fit
Mm,
and realizing that there's so many women that was also having this experience, or having this issue.
I see. That you were like, I need to create something.
Yeah.
These women, yeah. What inspired the name?
The grace of God over my life is really what it is. Yeah.
Yeah,
That is why it's called Grace and Company.
yeah.
Absolutely.
It's a name that people may not realize that it's about the Lord, but it's a
Mhm.
brand that just represents him and
In every way. I mean, it is such I don't see it as separate. I see it as, like I'm a believer. Everything that I do, I make decisions a certain way because of this.
yeah,
And so it's incorporated in every decision, everything that I do, everything that I create. I believe, God is the ultimate creator and
yeah,
we are made in his image. And so that's a resource that I definitely tap into.
exactly, for sure. I'm curious, what is your advice on, because I go to Paris Fashion Week 4 times a year, and occasionally I'm at events where there's models or famous people. Um, how would you say, or would you say to approach a famous or model person by sharing Christ or trying to shine the light of Christ? It might be a different way than what you would do that with someone who's not in this entertainment world. Is there a way that you would recommend shining the light of Christ to people in the entertainment industry?
Well, I think that at the end of the day, we're all people, right? And we're all like the word says that we're like made with eternity on our hearts. Like there is, we're going to worship something.
Yeah,
So, if you could choose what you may think you're not worshiping something, but you are worshiping something. And so I think that like just let your life be your testimony. I think that is so important. I think that you know people tend to gravitate more towards what people do than what they say necessarily. Like that the actions have to back up the words that you say. Your life must be a testimony, or else you're just not bearing fruit. And
yeah,
I think that is the most powerful thing to approach a non-believer or anyone in this industry. I think people are searching for something.
yeah.
I think it's just a matter of sharing your own experience. I think, your own experience is probably, yeah, it's probably the, for me I've been in this industry, and I think I could relate to people within this industry as well as other areas as well.
Mhm.
But I'm able to share something that is very real to me and that can connect with somebody just like you, right? Same industry. You're able to share with somebody else that they could relate to.
For
And
sure.
I think that's also helpful.
Yeah. I find with people in the entertainment fashion world, you can't start off with talking about Jesus. It is a little bit of what you say, just being an example,
Yeah.
talking about what the Lord has done for you, as opposed to, I guess,
Yeah.
I don't know, proselytizing uh,
Right.
in a way.
Yeah,
Um,
because it's a very intimate thing, right? And nobody like I, your life testimony and what you have experienced, nobody really could take that from you.
yeah,
Like I'm just sharing with you what my experience was or
yeah,
what my experience is. And as I said, for me, I did not understand that you could have a personal relationship. I think sometimes that goes over people's head. I don't think a lot of people know
hmm hmm
that God is after your heart. He loves you. All he wants is your heart. And he does want to have personal relationship
yeah, with each person that he
with each
creates.
person. And he created all people. And so his desire is for all people.
Yes, to know him for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, and I see it in models' faces. It's, it's you're being drug around, go to this show, go to that show, this party, that party, and you're so young. These models are super young.
So young.
a lot of the industry is fake and disappointing, and when you don't have the right people around you and the right
Absolutely.
messages, you can get caught up in this
The
world.
wrong. Yeah,
Industry. Yeah,
very, very easily because you're so impressionable.
yeah,
You're
yeah,
so impressionable, you're away from family or any really good, a lot of good influence.
yeah.
So it's a very tough one.
Yes, yes, for sure. But
And
there's people like you who can be mentors to models and faith mentors, or
mhm.
yeah, that can impact them.
Yeah, I think that if I had like found that relationship with Christ earlier in my career, I think that a lot of things would have probably gone a different way. Like I definitely would have made different, better decisions.
Yeah, yeah.
I would have made different decisions for a lot of things. But I'm happy that it happened at some point because it has truly changed my life.
Yes, for sure. Is there anything else that you want to say about Grace and Company? Any new launches coming or any?
Yeah, so a big part of or next steps as I see it is innovation and really listening to our customers, and seeing what else they would like, what else they need. And so as I think about, the next few months and the launches we have coming, I'm super excited, because that's really at the forefront is what is the customer saying and how can we really supply, to that need.
Yeah, for sure. It's nice to have faith-based brands and um, ones that just shine the light of Christ. And you're quite inspiring from doing campaigns from Valentino to Levi's. You've been in the throes of the industry. Um, so that's quite inspiring.
Yeah. Thank you.
My pleasure.
But the Lord is really worth it.
Yes,
It
all the
really
time.
is.
For
Yeah,
sure. And
it's so
and
worth
that
it.
staircase, it's amazing how he everything is purposed, and there's a reason for the last season because we had to go through prior seasons to get to the next season. And
Absolutely. It
he's
all
been
builds on each other.
it does. And he's been parenting for thousands of years, so he knows what he's doing.
We definitely need parent.
Yeah,
We definitely need parenting.
exactly.
Yeah, for
Exactly.
sure.
Well, thank you so much for
Of course.
chatting with me, and I can't wait to see where your brand grows and
Thank
where it goes. And yeah,
Absolutely. It was a pleasure chatting. Thank you so much for having me.
my pleasure. I hope that you enjoyed this podcast episode and that you have found a soulful connection to the conversation. God bless you, and until the next episode, go bless somebody else.